You showed up late, by almost the entire length of the show. Picture the whole history of the universe squeezed into a single day, midnight to midnight. The Big Bang lights the very first instant. Everything you have ever read about, the dinosaurs, the pyramids, the fall of Rome, your own grandmother, all of it crammed into the last few seconds before the next midnight strikes. And you? You don't appear until the final blink of that final second. The universe ran for nearly 14 billion years before it made a single human being. Not a slow build-up, a sudden, last-moment arrival. That feels like a problem. It feels like waste. An empty stage, the lights on, no actors, for almost the entire performance. Why would anything wait that long to begin? Why hold the curtain shut for billions of years? But the emptiness was lying to you. That long, dark wait was not the universe doing nothing. It was the universe building the one thing that could eventually turn around, look back across all that time, and ask why it took so long. Because here's the part nobody tells you. You could not have existed 1 minute sooner, and I'm about to show you exactly why. So go outside tonight. Find the darkest patch of sky you can reach, away from the streetlights, away from the glow of your phone. Then wait. Let your eyes adjust the full 10 minutes it actually takes, not the 30 seconds you usually give it. And watch the stars arrive. First the bright ones, the ones you already knew by heart. Then the faint ones. Then thousands more you never knew were there, until the whole sky feels crowded, almost loud, pressing gently down on you. Now here is the thing you have felt, but never quite named. That light is old. Some of those points of light left their stars before you were born. Some left before your country existed. A few left before the first human ever stood upright on 2 legs and looked up. You are not looking at the sky as it is. You are looking at a postcard from the past, and every single star sent it on a different day. You have felt this before, even if you couldn't put words to it. The quiet weight of looking at something enormously old, and realizing how briefly you get to look back. It's the same feeling you get holding a faded photograph of someone long gone. The image is right there in your hand. The moment it captured is not. It already slipped away years ago while you weren't looking. The light reaching you tonight is the same kind of ghost, only far, far older. And somewhere inside that feeling, a question is hiding. You look at all that ancient light, and you assume it was always there, hanging in place, waiting patiently for someone to finally admire it. As if the universe spent billions of years as a finished painting on a wall, just hoping a visitor would eventually wander into the gallery and see it. That's the comforting story. The universe as a stage, set and lit and ready, waiting politely for us to arrive and take our seats. It's also completely wrong. The universe was not waiting in that darkness. It was working. And what it was working on, slowly, violently, across a span of time your mind cannot really hold, was you. And here's the thing. Everybody asks the easy version of this question. Why are we so small? Why do we feel so alone out here? Why is the universe so impossibly, absurdly big? Those are fine questions. They're also the wrong ones. They skate across the surface and never once break through the ice. Nobody stops to ask the question hiding underneath all of them. Not, why are we late? The real question, the one that quietly breaks everything you thought you knew, is this. Why was the universe simply incapable of making us any earlier? Sit with that for a second. Really sit with it, because it changes the entire shape of the mystery. We quietly assume the 13.8 billion year wait was a choice, a deliberate pause, a held breath, as if the ingredients for a human being were sitting right there on the counter the whole time, and something simply decided to wait before mixing them together. But the ingredients weren't on the counter. For most of cosmic history, they did not exist anywhere at all, not hidden in a drawer, not waiting quietly in the back. They had not been made yet by anything. The early universe was almost embarrassingly simple. It had hydrogen, it had helium, a faint trace of lithium, and that was very nearly it. That's the entire shopping list for the first few 100 million years. And you cannot build a person out of hydrogen and helium any more than you can build a house out of nothing but the air in an empty lot. The shelves were bare. The cupboard was nearly empty. Whatever was going to cook, you had to first invent the very ingredients from almost nothing. So the question stops being why did it wait and becomes something far stranger and far more wonderful. The universe didn't delay you. The universe had to manufacture you, one atom at a time. And the factory it needed to do that took billions of years just to build itself from scratch. Stay with me, because once you see where your atoms actually came from, you will never look at your own hands the same way again. Here's the answer your textbook would give. The clean version. The one that fits neatly in a single paragraph and never once troubles your sleep. In the beginning, everything was too hot and too crowded for atoms to even hold themselves together. As the universe expanded, it cooled. Within the first few minutes, the simplest nuclei formed, hydrogen and helium, the two lightest elements there are. Much later, stars switched on. Gravity pulled the gas into enormous glowing balls, and deep in their cores, those stars began fusing hydrogen into helium. That fusion, that crush of atoms into heavier atoms, is exactly what makes a star shine in the night. That's the standard story. Stars are furnaces. They take light elements and fuse them into slightly heavier ones, releasing a flood of energy in the process. Simple, tidy, easy to draw on a whiteboard in 5 minutes. And as far as it goes, it's true. Our own sun is doing it right now, this very second, converting roughly 600 million tons of hydrogen into helium every single second of every single day. And it will keep right on doing that for billions of years to come. That warmth on your face on a summer afternoon, it started in that furnace 8 minutes ago. So the textbook tells you the universe made hydrogen, made helium, lit a few stars, and there you go. Cosmic history, explained. Class dismissed. Go home. But notice what's missing. Notice it carefully, because it matters more than anything else in this whole story. Your body is not made of hydrogen and helium. The breath in your lungs is oxygen. The bones holding you upright are built from calcium. The blood moving warmly through you carries iron. The very thread of your DNA, the twisted code that makes you you and not someone else, is built on a long backbone of carbon. None of those were anywhere on that early shopping list. Hydrogen, helium, a whisper of lithium, and then a gap. A huge, gaping, silent gap where every single element you're actually made of should be. The textbook lit the stars, but it never once told you where the rest of you came from. And that gap, the part the textbook quietly skips right over, is exactly where the real story has been hiding the whole time. So the textbook says stars make helium and shine. But the universe does something far stranger, far more violent, and far more generous than that tidy little story ever admits. Stars don't just make helium and stop. When a large star finally burns through all the hydrogen in its core, it doesn't quietly die. It changes the recipe entirely. It starts fusing helium into carbon, then carbon into oxygen, then oxygen into neon, magnesium, silicon, a runaway furnace climbing the ladder of the elements, each stage hotter and faster and more desperate than the one before it. The core of a dying massive star ends up looking like an onion, layer upon layer upon layer, each shell cooking a different, heavier element than the shell outside it. And at the very center, finally, sits iron. Iron is where the music stops. Fusing iron doesn't release energy the way all the earlier reactions did. It costs energy instead. So the furnace that held the star up against its own crushing weight for millions of years suddenly, catastrophically fails. In less than a single second, the core collapses inward on itself. And then the whole star detonates. This is a supernova. For a few short weeks, one dying star can outshine an entire galaxy of 100 billion ordinary stars combined. And in the unimaginable heat and pressure of that explosion, conditions that exist nowhere else in the entire cosmos, The very heaviest elements are forged and flung violently outward into space. Gold, silver, the iodine sitting in your thyroid, the iron riding in your blood. Here's a number to make it real, to drag it out of the abstract and into your hands. A single supernova can release more energy in those few short weeks than our sun will produce across its entire 10 billion year lifetime. That staggering, unthinkable violence is the actual price of your atoms. And every single time it happens, the galaxy gets a little richer, a little more capable of someday building something alive. The textbook gave you a furnace. The truth is a sacrifice. Stars live, they build, and they die. And their deaths are exactly what scatter the ingredients of life across the whole galaxy. You are not made by the universe gently, like bread rising in a warm kitchen. You are made by things exploding. So let me put you somewhere. Stand with me, in your imagination, on a barren rock 4.5 billion years ago. There is no Earth yet, none at all. Just a vast cloud of gas and dust drifting in the cold dark. The leftover ash of stars that already lived their whole lives and died. This is the raw material the Earth will one day be built from. And right now, you're standing in the very middle of it. Reach out. Run your hand slowly through the dust. Every single particle here was once inside a star. That carbon grain brushing against your fingertips. It was cooked in the core of a star that exploded before our sun was even a flicker of an idea. The iron specks drifting silently past were forged in the heart of a supernova. The oxygen all around you was breathed out by a dying giant in its final agony. You are standing inside a graveyard, and at the very same time, you are standing inside a nursery. They are not two places, they are the exact same place. Now watch what happens next. Gravity, patient and utterly relentless, begins pulling all this scattered debris together. It takes millions upon millions of years to do it. The cloud collapses, begins to spin, and slowly flattens into a wide, spinning disk. At the center, pressure and heat build and build until a brand new star ignites, our sun, a third-hand star built entirely from the ashes of the dead ones that came before. And in the leftover rubble orbiting that young sun, grains stick to grains. Pebbles clump into boulders. Boulders smash into worlds. It is slow and clumsy and astonishingly patient. Nobody is steering. Gravity just keeps gathering, century after century, until something solid enough to stand on finally exists. Protoplanetary disk forming, dust coalescing into rings, then into rocky bodies orbiting a young sun. One of those worlds is Earth. And the carbon you touched in that cloud, it's about to become limestone cliffs and ancient forests, and eventually the living cells of every creature that will ever crawl or swim or fly across this planet, including, 4.5 billion years later, the very hand you're reading this with right now. So here's the truth that should stop you cold and hold you there. You didn't come from the Earth. The Earth and you came from the very same dead stars at the very same time, out of the very same drifting cloud of ash. You are not a visitor passing through this universe on your way to somewhere else. You are the universe itself, briefly and improbably rearranged into a shape that can think and feel and wonder. Tell me honestly, did you already know your body is made of dead stars? Or is this the first time anyone said it to you? I read every reply. And if that already feels big, wait. Because the timing of when you got to exist is even stranger than where your atoms came from. So let's build a real explanation now in 3 clear layers. Start with what it actually feels like. It feels like trying to cook a meal where you first have to grow the wheat from a single seed, raise the animals from birth, and mine the salt out of the ground before you're even allowed to think about the recipe. The early universe couldn't make a human because it simply didn't have the ingredients yet. And making those ingredients meant building, burning, and killing entire generations of stars, one after another after another. The long wait wasn't idle, empty time. It was preparation, layered on top of preparation, layered on top of preparation. Now the second layer, the math, but in plain human terms, with no equations to fear. Astronomers measure how rich a cloud of gas is using a quantity they call metallicity. To a physicist, a metal is any element heavier than hydrogen and helium, so to them, even your carbon and your oxygen count as metals. The first stars were born with a metallicity of nearly zero, almost pure hydrogen and helium, and nothing else at all. Then, each generation of stars that lived and died raised that number a little more, seeding the next cloud with more carbon, more oxygen, more iron. Picture it like topsoil building up in a forest over centuries. The first bare ground was lifeless rock. Every plant that grew and died left behind slightly richer soil for the next one to root in. It took many generations of growth and death before the soil was finally fertile enough to grow something as staggeringly complicated as you. And the third layer, the deepest one of all, what every bit of this says about reality itself. It means complexity is never, ever free. The universe cannot simply conjure a thinking, feeling, remembering being on its very first day. It has to pay for it, in time and in stellar death, and the bill runs enormous. Every level of complexity has to be assembled from the wreckage of the level beneath it. Stars are built from raw gas. Heavy elements are built from dying stars. Planets are built from heavy elements. Life is built from planets, and minds are built from life. It's a staircase, and every single step is constructed entirely out of the broken pieces of the step below it. The universe didn't wait 13.8 billion years to make you. It needed every single one of those years just to afford you. And watch this same single idea explode outward across every scale of existence, from the very smallest thing to the very largest. Start impossibly small. A single carbon atom sitting in the tip of your finger. 6 protons, locked tightly together in a nucleus 100,000 times smaller than the atoms surrounding it. That nucleus was assembled inside a stellar furnace through a fusion reaction so improbable that it nearly never happens at all. 3 helium nuclei colliding in very nearly the same instant, a triple coincidence. The fact that carbon exists in any quantity whatsoever hangs on a razor-thin tuning written into the very laws of physics. Nudge those laws slightly, and there's no carbon, no you, no anyone at all. The whole staircase of complexity collapses before it ever begins. Everything you are balances on that one delicate coincidence. Now zoom outward to a single living cell. Inside your body, right now, there are roughly 30 trillion of them, and each one is a bustling city of molecular machinery, every tiny gear and motor running on those same star-forged atoms, copying instructions written patiently in carbon and phosphorus and nitrogen. Each cell is older than it looks. Its parts were made in stars. Zoom out again, to your whole body all at once. You are made of around 7 octillion atoms, a 7 followed by a staggering 27 zeros, and almost every single one heavier than helium was manufactured inside a star that has long since burned out and died. Zoom out again, to the earth beneath your feet. It's nothing less than a ball of supernova ash, melted by heat and sorted by gravity into a molten metal core, a thin rocky crust, and a delicate film of ocean. Its iron heart, a fossil of stars that exploded before it formed. Out again, to the entire galaxy wheeling above you. 100 billion stars, generation after generation, living and dying and slowly enriching the whole vast system. Exactly like a forest where every fallen tree quietly feeds the seedlings that follow it. And out one final dizzying time to the cosmic web itself. Galaxies strung like dewdrops along invisible threads stretching across billions of light years of darkness. The very same process, repeating endlessly everywhere you look. Matter dying and being reborn into something more complex than it was before. The whole universe, from top to bottom, is a single, slow, patient act of recycling. And you happen to be one of the rare and precious places where the recycling briefly woke up and noticed itself doing it. So here's the realization. Let it arrive slowly, because it's far bigger than it first appears to be. You already know, by now, that the wait wasn't really waiting at all. It was construction, from start to finish. That's the first step on the staircase. Now take the second step up. That construction